The past few years have truly tested me financially. Beginning with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the pillar of our family's financial stability, my dad, lost his job managing a small local restaurant due to the government's quarantine rules. Facing this harsh reality and being unable to pay for my college tuition, I recognized the importance of securing employment as soon as I could. I explored various opportunities: restaurants, delivery, construction. I've tried almost everything you can think of, and eventually, I landed a position at a local supermarket that was around a 15-minute drive away from where I lived. My responsibilities involved receiving, unloading, and checking the supplies that arrived every night from midnight to 2 a.m. This schedule suited me well, as it allowed me free mornings to balance work, studies, and household responsibilities. But little did I know, this seemingly hassle-free job would transform into a chilling tale for me to share. I still recall it was a Friday night. I arrived late due to heavy rain making the drive challenging. Despite my boss's disapproval, I dove into my tasks immediately, as I wasn't planning on making him more disappointed than he already was. As usual, the manager handed me the keys to the store. I was entrusted with closing the store after getting my work done. Our supplies were stored in a small garage a few feet from the main store. As I carried boxes inside, preparing for the next day's business, I thought I saw something walk into the store. It was too little to be a human being. I thought it was a raccoon, and frankly, I was too tired to really care about that. After getting everything inside the main store, I locked the door behind me and started organizing everything in the respective shelf. As I was doing that, I heard the service bell ring. It stopped abruptly, so I thought I just imagined it and just kept working. However, the bell rang a second time, and this time I was certain this wasn't my imagination. As I headed towards the counter, I yelled, "Sorry, we're closed," as I thought it might have been someone trying to buy something a little bit late, but I received no response at all. At the counter, I found no one, leaving me uneasy and confused. As a desperate attempt to comfort myself, I tucked the service bell into my pocket and decided to resume my duties. Few moments later, the bell rang again. The sound didn't emanate from my pocket. Panicking, I called out, "Hello? Is there anyone here? We're closed. Please leave." In response, the door, which I was sure was locked, slammed so violently I feared the glass might shatter. That was my breaking point. I threw the boxes that I've carried on the ground and immediately rushed outside. I locked the store and ran towards my car, which was parked facing the storefront. As I turned on the engine and the headlights pierced the darkness, I witnessed the most horrifying sight of my life. Inside the store, on the other side of the glass, stood a little boy holding a handbell. The boy appeared to be around 7 years old, dressed in tattered clothes. The little boy was staring at the floor, making it impossible for me to discern his facial expressions. However, I did notice some teardrops running down his face. In one hand, he clutches a rusted handbell. Standing completely motionless, he was so fixated on the rhythmic ringing of the bell, and that's when the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been inside the store with whatever that unsettling presence was for the entire time. I've always loved nature. When I was a kid, visiting my grandparents in the countryside was a highlight. The beauty of the outdoors, so different from the city life with my parents, always fascinated me. That's why landing a job as a fire watch felt like hitting the jackpot. Sure, the pay wasn't great, but the chance to spend time in a lovely forest, watching animals, going on hikes, and living in a treehouse meant more to me than money. I jumped at the opportunity. I remember David, the lead watch, showing me around. I had to look after about 20 acres of land, a beautiful place with a lake and some hills. My main job was to keep an eye out for any trouble, especially little fires, and report them before they got serious. To do that, I got a sweet treehouse with an excellent view. The only way to communicate was through my walkie-talkie. My phone was useless with no signal around, so when I felt lonely, I could chat with the other rangers watching nearby lands. One night, as I sat in my treehouse reading, something caught my eye. Outside my window, in the pitch darkness, I saw someone walking around. It was strange because this place wasn't a hotspot for campers. It was too remote. Not knowing what to do, I kept watching. The person walked in a creepy, slow, limping way, disappearing behind a huge tree. Minutes later, they reappeared in the same spot, walked to the same tree, and vanished again. It happened a third, fourth, fifth time. That's when I knew something was off. I grabbed my binoculars to get a closer look. Every move was scrutinized, but the person seemed to have no destination, just walking in circles around my treehouse. When I shouted, asking if they needed help, they stopped but didn't say a word. It was so dark, but I felt their eyes on me. When they started walking again, they didn't limp. They looked healthy and vanished without a trace behind the tree. Weird as it was, I didn't dwell on it much. It was 2 a.m. and I was dead tired, so I decided to sleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up for no reason. What I saw froze me. A shadowy figure stood outside my treehouse. I couldn't make out details in the darkness, but as I stirred, they bolted away, as if they sensed me walking up. That's when I knew something was wrong. I tried my walkie-talkie to reach the other Firewatch guards, but no connection, not even to the base. In my desperate attempt, I stumbled upon a strange frequency playing a low, eerie music piece. It ended with someone saying, "Under the hanging notes, Chez Uli." The melancholy tune felt like it was a telling tragedy. Unable to sleep, I decided to take a walk as daylight approached. Still haunted by the night before, I followed the path the mysterious person had taken. Behind the huge tree, I discovered a bump in the ground. Digging it up, I found a very old book, a diary, at least 80 years old with Chez Uli on the cover. Reading it, everything clicked. Chez, the artist from the music, had a tragic past. At 20, he lost his foot in an accident, and despite his outstanding talent at playing piano, no one ever acknowledged him. His last piece was named "A Necklace of Rope," and his very last entry said, "Tonight, I'm going to end it all. Let my soul die, for my music lives." And that's when I realized very well that what I saw was the ghost of Chez, seeking to reveal his forgotten musical pieces, hoping to shed light on his tragic story. 3 years ago, I decided to form a one-man band. Relying on my musical talent, I tried to make a living out of it. I mainly performed at wedding parties, as those gigs were the easiest to secure and did really pay pretty generously. Surprisingly, I was making good money from these gigs. Last summer, I received a message from a person who wanted to hire me for his son's wedding. He mentioned seeing my videos on a Facebook group and expressed his admiration for my music. He sent me the location, which was a 30-minute drive away. I packed my equipment and set off in my car. I arrived around 6 p.m. at what seemed more like a palace than a house. It was so isolated, with no neighboring houses in sight. It was clear that this family owned the entire land. I was greeted by an old man, the house owner, and the groom's father. Despite the party supposedly having started according to the invitation, there was no one else present. It wasn't until around 11 p.m., when darkness enveloped the surroundings, that guests started arriving one by one. As a few guests arrived, the old man followed me onto the stage. He asked me to commence my performance. He uttered, "No matter what you see or hear, just keep singing." A wave of unease washed over me as his words lingered. However, I focused on the task at hand. I began my show while the house owner dimmed the lights, leaving only faint lamps illuminating the stage. Gradually, the guests joined in, dancing and singing along with me. But as time passed, the atmosphere grew increasingly macabre. Grotesque screams erupted from the guests, as if they were trapped in eternal agony. They kicked the floor with their feet and shrieked with piercing intensity. I recall almost fainting multiple times on stage. Struggling to see the guests amidst the dim lighting, I caught glimpses of the horrifying scenes. Women danced while screaming, tearing at their own hair as if in grief. Some even tore patches of their own skin off. The sickness overwhelmed me. Though the thought of escape crossed my mind, my fear kept me rooted. Hours stretched on, and it was finally dusk when faint rays of sunlight broke through the windows. Instantly, everyone froze. They ceased their dance and their screams and stood motionless as statues, prompting me to escape. As I ran for my life, the nightmarish images I had witnessed resembled scenes from a horror movie. Guests' clothes were torn, their hair and skin scattered across the floor, blood cascading from their scalps. Their wide-open mouths and eyes bore expressions of sheer terror. As I ran through the frozen crowd, I couldn't shake the thought of a hand reaching out to snatch me from behind. Eventually, I found myself outside the house. Without hesitation, I sped away in my car. Glancing back, I could clearly see the house owner standing at the door, wearing an unsettling grin that oozed anger as he gazed upon me. That was the last time I ever performed at a wedding. Years have passed, yet this horrific incident remains a secret only me and now you know.